I stood at my sister Courtney's wedding reception, hands trembling as my mother shoved sheet music into my chest. "You'll play during dinner," my mom, Carol, hissed, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Think of yourself as background music. That's all you've ever been good for." The room buzzed with expensive flowers and designer dresses. Courtney glided past in her $15,000 gown, smirking. "Try not to embarrass us, Bertie. This isn't one of your little coffee shop gigs." The piano sat in the corner like a trap waiting to spring. I shouldn't have been surprised. This was exactly the kind of thing my mother would orchestrate. Put me on display just to humiliate me, to remind everyone in the room that I was the family disappointment. My entire childhood had been spent in Courtney's shadow. She was the golden child, the one who did everything right. Perfect grades, perfect clothes, perfect friends. She followed our mother into real estate after college and became successful almost immediately. Mom loved to brag about her. Courtney closed her first $1 million sale at 24. By 27, she had her own team. And then there was me, Bertie, the mistake, the one who chose wrong. I'd started college as a business major because that's what Mom insisted on. She'd told me since I was 15 that I'd work in real estate with her and Courtney. We'd be a family empire. But halfway through sophomore year, I couldn't do it anymore. The classes felt like prison. The only time I felt alive was when I was playing piano in the music building's practice rooms. I'd been playing since I was 6, but somewhere along the way it stopped being just a hobby. It became the only thing that made sense to me. So I dropped out of business school and switched to music. Mom didn't speak to me for 3 months. When she finally did, it was to tell me I was throwing my life away. Courtney called me selfish. Dad just looked disappointed and said nothing, which somehow felt worse. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of struggling to make it as a pianist in Connecticut, where nobody cares about original music unless you're playing in someone's summer home in the Hamptons. I taught piano lessons to kids who didn't want to learn. I played in coffee shops where people talked over me. I played in bars where drunk guys asked if I knew any Billy Joel. I made barely enough to survive, and for the past 8 months, I'd been living in my parents' guest house because I couldn't afford my own apartment anymore. They never let me forget it. Every family dinner became a lecture. Every conversation included some comment about my choices, my failures, my inability to be an adult. Courtney would show up in her designer suits, fresh from closing another deal, and Mom would fawn over her while barely looking at me. And now here I was, at Courtney's wedding to Devon, a corporate lawyer whose family was just as wealthy and prominent as ours. 200 guests filled this exclusive country club, everyone who mattered in our Connecticut social circle. The whole thing probably cost more than I'd made in the last 3 years combined. I'd been deliberately excluded from most of the wedding planning. When Courtney finally told me I'd be a bridesmaid, I thought maybe she was trying to include me. Then I saw the dress she'd chosen for me. While the other bridesmaids wore elegant designer gowns in dusty rose, I got a cheap polyester dress in a slightly different shade that didn't quite match. I looked like the help. I wasn't allowed to bring a date. Mom said they were keeping the guest list tight, but Courtney's friends all had +1s. I was seated at table 19 with second cousins I barely knew, including 2 children under 10. At 28 years old, I'd been put at the kids' table. Now Mom was making her announcement, her voice carrying across the nearby tables. "Everyone, my younger daughter Bertie is going to provide some entertainment during dinner. She's a musician, you know." Well, she tries to be. She laughed, and several guests laughed with her. She never could hold a real job, but at least she can make herself useful tonight. Courtney appeared beside her, radiant in that obscenely expensive gown, her professionally styled hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She draped an arm around Mom's shoulders and smiled at the nearby guests. My baby sister, the starving artist. Mom's letting her pretend to be important for one night. Isn't that sweet? More laughter. My face burned. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to walk out right then, leave them all behind. But I knew that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted me to make a scene, to prove I was unstable, dramatic, unable to handle being around normal, successful people. So I walked to the piano in the corner, my cheap dress rustling, and sat down on the bench. Servers were beginning to bring out the first course. The beautiful people in their beautiful clothes barely glanced my way. I was exactly what Mom said I was. Background music, forgettable, disposable. I looked down at the sheet music she'd given me. Boring, predictable, classical pieces. Pachelbel's canon. Some Chopin. Music that was pretty but bland, the kind of thing that disappears into wallpaper. Music that wouldn't distract from conversation or make anyone stop eating their $75 plates of food. My hands shook as I placed them on the keys. I thought about the past 5 years, every dismissal, every insult, every time I'd been made to feel small, every time Mom told me I was wasting my life, every time Courtney looked at me with pity or contempt, every time Dad just stayed silent and let them tear me apart. And then something inside me snapped. I didn't play Pachelbel. I didn't play Chopin. Instead, my fingers found the opening notes of something I'd been working on for 3 years. An original composition I'd never performed publicly. A piece I'd written about pain and family, and finding your voice when everyone tries to silence you. It started soft and melancholy, almost like a question. Then it built, layer by layer, becoming more complex, more powerful. I poured everything into it. Every hurt, every rejection, every moment of being invisible in my own family. The music swelled and crashed like waves, tender one moment and fierce the next. Within 30 seconds, I heard the change. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The clinking of silverware went quiet. I could feel people turning to look, but I kept my eyes closed, kept playing. This was 3 years of my life in music form. Every note mattered. Every phrase carried weight. The piece moved through movements like a journey. The pain of rejection, the loneliness of being misunderstood, the anger at injustice, and finally, the tentative, fragile hope of finding your own path. When I played the final chord and lifted my hands from the keys, the entire ballroom was silent. Then the applause started. Not polite golf clapping, but real applause. Thunderous. People stood up. I opened my eyes and saw 200 people on their feet, clapping, some with tears streaming down their faces. Guests rushed toward the piano. A woman in a burgundy dress gripped my hands. That was extraordinary. Do you have recordings? An album? Where can I hear you play? A man in an expensive suit asked for my card. Another woman wanted to know if I performed at private events. I felt dizzy, overwhelmed. This had never happened before. People were actually seeing me, hearing me, responding to my music the way I'd always dreamed they would. Then I saw her, a woman in her 50s, elegant in a navy dress, pushing through the small crowd around the piano. She handed me a business card. Helen Morrison, Morrison Music Group, music producer. Call me Monday, she said, her eyes intense. That was extraordinary. I want to talk to you about a recording contract. For one perfect moment, I felt like I was floating. This was it. This was the breakthrough I'd been waiting for. Years of struggle, and finally someone who mattered had heard me. Then I looked across the room and saw their faces. Mom's expression was frozen in shock and fury, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Courtney stood near the head table, her face twisted with rage, all the bridal glow gone. She stared at me with pure hatred. The moment crystallized with horrible clarity. I'd just upstaged the bride at her own wedding. The day that was supposed to be entirely about Courtney, I'd made about me. Everyone was talking about my performance, my music, me. Not about how beautiful Courtney looked, not about the expensive flowers or the perfect ceremony, about me. I'd made a terrible mistake. As guests continued congratulating me, pressing cards into my hands, asking questions, I watched Courtney storm toward the bridal suite, her dress swishing violently. Devin hurried after her, looking concerned and confused. Several guests noticed and whispered. Mom set down her champagne glass and cut through the crowd like a shark. Her manicured nails dug into my arm as she pulled me away from the piano. "What did you just do?" She hissed in my ear, her smile frozen for the watching guests even as her words dripped venom. Mom dragged me into a small private room off the reception hall, a coat check area that was empty except for racks of expensive jackets and wraps. The door slammed behind us, and her composure shattered. "You selfish, jealous little brat." She was screaming now, her face red, spit flying. "You couldn't let your sister have one single day that wasn't about you and your pathetic need for attention." "I just played piano," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You told me to play piano. That's what I did. You were supposed to be background, barely noticeable. You made yourself the center of attention at your sister's wedding." Her hands were shaking with rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Everyone is talking about you instead of Courtney. You've ruined everything." The door burst open and Courtney rushed in, still in her wedding gown, her professionally applied makeup streaked with angry tears. "I hate you," she screamed at me. "I have always hated you. And now you've proven exactly how disgusting and selfish you really are." "Courtney, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Shut up. Shut up. This was my day. My wedding. The most important day of my life. And you turned it into the Birdie show." She was sobbing now, gulping air. "Everyone out there is talking about your stupid performance instead of my wedding. Do you know how that feels?" Devin appeared in the doorway, looking distressed. "Honey, come on. Let's go back out. People are asking where you are." "Are you defending her?" Courtney whirled on him, her voice going shrill. "My own husband is defending the person who just ruined our wedding? I'm not defending anyone. I just think maybe you should what? Pretend this didn't happen? Pretend my sister didn't deliberately sabotage the most important day of my life?" "I didn't sabotage anything," I said, and I could hear my own voice rising. "I played beautifully. That's not my fault." The words hung in the air. I watched Courtney's face go from red to almost purple. "You arrogant, delusional." She started toward me, and Devin grabbed her arm. Mom stepped between us, but she was looking at me with disgust. "Get out. Leave. Now." "No," I said, surprising myself. "I didn't do anything wrong. I played piano like you asked. I played beautifully. If that upsets you, that says more about you than it does about me." Years of resentment came pouring out. I couldn't stop it. "You've spent my entire life making me feel worthless because I didn't want to sell houses, because I wanted to make music. You've mocked me, belittled me, treated me like a failure. And tonight, for the first time, people actually heard what I can do. They saw that I have talent, and you can't stand it." "How dare you," Mom said, her voice low and dangerous. "How dare I what? Tell the truth? You brought me here to humiliate me. You called me background music in front of 200 people. You set me up to fail. And when I succeeded instead, you can't handle it. You're jealous," Courtney spat. "You've always been jealous of me because I'm successful and you're nothing. You saw me happy and couldn't stand it, so you had to ruin it. I'm not jealous of you, Courtney. I pity you. You're so desperate for Mom's approval that you've become exactly like her. Shallow, cruel, and convinced that the only thing that matters is money and status." The crack of Mom's hand across my face was so sudden I didn't see it coming. My head snapped to the side, my cheek exploding with pain. The room went silent. Devin looked horrified. "Carol, you can't just—" "Stay out of this," Mom said, not taking her eyes off me. "This is between family." I touched my stinging cheek, tasted blood where my teeth had cut the inside of my mouth. Something in me went very cold and very calm. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. "Good," Courtney said. "Don't come back," Mom added. "Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Don't come home at all." I looked at her, this woman who gave birth to me, who was supposed to love me unconditionally. Fine. I grabbed my small purse from where I'd left it on a chair and walked toward the door. As I passed through the reception area, I could feel people staring. Several guests had clearly heard the commotion. Their faces showed shock, pity, curiosity. Helen, the music producer, appeared beside me in the hallway. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," I lied. "I meant what I said. You're incredibly talented. I want to sign you." She pressed her card into my hand again. "Call me Monday. We'll set up a meeting to discuss a recording contract. This could be the beginning of something amazing for you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Other guests approached as I headed toward the exit. An older couple asked for my contact information. A younger woman wanted to know if I taught lessons. A man asked if I performed at weddings, apparently not seeing the irony. My phone started buzzing in my purse. I pulled it out and saw message after message coming in. Some from people I didn't know, guests who'd somehow gotten my number. Congratulations, compliments, requests. But also texts from Courtney. Vicious, hateful messages calling me every name she could think of, telling me I was dead to her, that I'd always been a burden, and she was glad I was finally gone. Then a text from Mom. "You are dead to me. Don't come home. Don't call. You're not my daughter anymore." Another from Dad, who'd been so passive throughout everything. "Your mother's right. You went too far. Give them space." I stood in the country club parking lot in my cheap bridesmaid dress, holding my phone, reading these messages that were dismantling my entire life. I'd driven to the wedding with my parents. My car was at their house. Most of my belongings were in the guest house where I'd been living. I checked my bank account on my phone. $843. That was everything I had. I was 28 years old, and I'd just been disowned by my entire family. I called my best friend Amanda from the parking lot, my voice shaking. She lived 40 minutes away in a rough part of Hartford, in a tiny one-bedroom apartment that barely fit her and her boyfriend Craig. But she said yes immediately when I asked if I could crash on her couch. The Uber cost me $60 I couldn't afford. By the time I got to Amanda's building at almost midnight, still in the bridesmaid dress, I was numb. She hugged me at the door and didn't ask questions. Just handed me sweatpants and a t-shirt and made up the couch with sheets and a thin blanket. That couch became my home. It was lumpy and too short, and I could hear everything through the thin walls. Amanda and Craig fighting about money, the neighbors upstairs stomping around at all hours. Someone's television always too loud. I spent the first 3 days in a daze. I called my parents' house over and over. No one answered. I texted Dad begging him to let me come get my things. He finally responded, "Your mother needs time. Don't contact us." My entire life was in that guest house. My keyboard, my laptop with all my compositions, my clothes, my grandmother's jewelry, photo albums from childhood, everything that mattered to me, I couldn't access. On Monday morning, I called Helen, the music producer. My hands shook as I dialed. This was my lifeline. This was the thing that would make everything worthwhile. She answered on the third ring. "Helen Morrison." "Hi, this is Birdie. From the wedding. You said to call you about—" "Oh, Birdie." Her voice changed, became uncomfortable. "I'm glad you called. I need to talk to you about that." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "I received some calls over the weekend. From your mother and your sister. They were very concerned about you." "Concerned?" "They told me some things. About your mental health. About some instability issues you've been dealing with. Past incidents that were troubling." She paused. "They mentioned you'd stolen from them. That you'd made threats." "That's not true. None of that is true." They were very convincing. Very worried. They said you've been showing increasingly erratic behavior, and they're trying to get you help. "They're lying." My voice cracked. "They're lying because they're angry I upstaged Courtney at the wedding." "I'm sure this is very difficult," Helen said, her voice taking on that careful, placating tone people use with unstable people. But I can't risk working with someone who comes with this much family drama. I run a small label. I can't afford controversy or complications. But you heard me play. You said I was extraordinary. You are talented, but talent isn't enough if there are other issues. I'm sorry. I hope you get the help you need. She hung up. I sat on Amanda's couch staring at my phone, feeling the world tilt. They'd called her. They'd deliberately poisoned this opportunity before it could begin. Over the next week, it got worse. 3 other people from the wedding who'd expressed interest in working with me called to cancel meetings. All of them had been contacted by either Mom or Courtney. All of them had heard the same story. Mental health issues, instability, theft, threats. I watched in horror as Courtney posted on social media a long, carefully crafted post about my attention-seeking sister who tried to ruin my wedding. She wrote about how painful it was to have a family member who couldn't be happy for you, how she'd tried to include me despite my problems, and I'd betrayed her trust. The post was sympathetic to me on the surface, all concern and sadness, but the message underneath was clear. I was disturbed, troubled, pitiable. The post went semi-viral in our Connecticut social circle. Hundreds of comments poured in. People I'd gone to high school with, people from the wedding, complete strangers weighing in. Almost all of them sided with Courtney. Your poor family. Some people just can't handle when others are successful. She clearly needs professional help. This is what mental illness looks like. I made the mistake of responding, trying to defend myself. That only made it worse. People screenshot my comments and shared them as evidence of my instability. My piano students' parents started canceling lessons. 3 families the first week, 2 more the second week. By the end of the 3rd week, I'd lost all but 2 students. One mother told me directly, "I just don't feel comfortable having my daughter alone with you given what I've been hearing." The coffee shop where I'd had a regular Thursday night gig called me. The owner, Sandra, sounded apologetic but firm. "We're making some budget cuts. We can't afford live music anymore. Sandra, please. I need this gig." "I'm sorry, Bertie. It's a business decision." But I knew the truth. Sandra was friends with Mom. This wasn't about budget cuts. My income dried up to almost nothing. I was living on Amanda's couch with no job, no prospects, and a growing reputation as an unstable person who'd sabotaged her own sister's wedding. 3 weeks after the wedding, I was down to $400. Amanda and Craig were getting tense. I could hear them arguing in the bedroom about me being there. Craig wanted his apartment back. Amanda defended me. But I could hear the strain in her voice. I decided I needed to fight back. I made my own social media post. I told my side of the story, how I'd been treated my entire life, the years of being called a failure, a disappointment, being set up to be humiliated at the wedding, playing beautifully and being punished for it. I included the detail about Mom calling me background music. I asked people to understand, I just played piano. That's all I did. I thought maybe people would hear me. Maybe some people would understand. The post backfired catastrophically. Courtney screenshot it within an hour and reposted it with the caption, "And now she's lying about our family online." This is exactly the kind of attention-seeking behavior we've dealt with for years. I love my sister, but she needs help. Mom added her own post. A long, heartbroken message about dealing with a troubled adult child, about trying everything to help me, about the pain of watching someone you love spiral, about the difficult decision to create boundaries for everyone's safety. She wrote it perfectly. The concerned, exhausted mother, the victim of her daughter's illness. People believed them. Of course they did. They were established, respected members of the community. Mom was a successful real estate broker. Courtney was rising in her field. They had the social capital, the credibility. I was just the struggling musician who still lived with her parents at 28. I was the one whose story didn't make sense, the one who seemed bitter and jealous. The comments on my post were vicious. "You need serious psychiatric help. Stop lying about your family who clearly love you. This is disgusting. They're being kind to you and you attack them online. Someone needs to report her. She seems dangerous. Someone found old photos of me from college, pictures from a particularly bad semester when I'd been going through a breakup and looked rough. Unwashed hair, baggy clothes, dark circles under my eyes. These were shared as evidence of my long-term instability. The narrative solidified. Troubled younger sister, jealous of successful older sister, creates drama and plays victim when called out. My actual story, the truth of what happened, was buried under their carefully constructed lie. I deleted the post. It was too late. The damage was done. Now I looked even worse, like I was trying to hide evidence. Amanda sat me down on the couch 4 weeks after the wedding. Craig and I need to talk to you. I knew what was coming. His mom is coming to stay with us for a few weeks. We need the couch. And honestly, Bertie, he's uncomfortable with everything that's been happening. The online stuff. He's worried about his reputation. Amanda, please. I have nowhere to go. I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't lose Craig over this. You have 3 days. I spent those 3 days applying for every job I could find. Retail, waitressing, data entry, anything. I applied to 47 jobs in 3 days. I got rejection after rejection. Most didn't even respond. The few that did were brief. We've decided to go with other candidates. I knew what was happening. Employers were Googling my name, finding the wedding drama, seeing the accusations of instability. No one wanted to hire someone who came with that kind of baggage. On my last night at Amanda's, I packed my few belongings into 2 garbage bags. Everything I owned now fit in 2 trash bags. I'd sold my keyboard to a pawn shop for $150 just to have money. It felt like selling a piece of my soul. I found a motel on the highway outside Hartford. $49 a night. The kind of place where you didn't look too closely at the stains on the carpet or ask questions about the sounds from other rooms. I paid for 3 nights. That left me with $212. I lay on the thin mattress staring at the water-stained ceiling and thought about how thoroughly they'd destroyed me. It had taken them less than a month to dismantle my entire life. My reputation, my career, my home, my relationships, everything I'd built. They'd torn down with a few phone calls and social media posts. And the worst part was that it worked because on some level, people wanted to believe their version. The successful family, the troubled daughter. It fit a comfortable narrative. My truth was too ugly, too complicated. It required people to believe that mothers could be cruel, that families could be toxic, that sometimes the person asking for help was actually the victim. That was too uncomfortable. So they believed the lie instead. The motel room became my entire world. I extended my stay 1 night at a time, watching my money disappear. $49, then another. $49, then another. I applied for more jobs. The responses, when they came, were all the same. No, not interested. Position filled. I stopped showering regularly to save money. Stopped eating anything except the cheapest food from the convenience store next door. Ramen noodles, crackers. Sometimes nothing at all. I lost weight. My clothes hung off me. I caught sight of myself in the motel mirror one morning and barely recognized the person staring back. Hollow eyes, greasy hair, skin pale and drawn. I looked sick. I looked exactly like the unstable person they'd accused me of being. The online attacks continued. Someone had created a whole thread on a local forum dedicated to discussing my behavior. Hundreds of comments picking apart everything I'd ever posted online, finding evidence of my supposed mental illness in mundane photos and status updates. I stopped eating one day. Not on purpose. I just looked at the money in my account, $37 and change, and couldn't bring myself to spend it on food. I might need it for something more important. I wasn't sure what. Just something. A week into my stay at the motel, I made a decision. I couldn't survive in Connecticut. My reputation was destroyed. No one would hire me. My family had made sure of that. I needed to leave. Start completely over somewhere else where nobody knew my name. Nashville. That's where I'd go. A real music city. Somewhere I could disappear and rebuild. Maybe use a different name. Become someone new. I started selling everything I had left. My nice clothes went to a consignment shop for $70. My jewelry, including a necklace my grandmother had given me, to a pawn shop for $130. My phone I kept, but I downgraded to the cheapest possible plan. Every book, every piece of anything valuable, I sold. I scraped together $917, enough for a bus ticket to Nashville and maybe a week in a cheap place while I looked for work. The bus left the next morning at 6. I bought the ticket online, $67, my escape route. That night, I made a decision. Before I left Connecticut forever, I needed my documents, my birth certificate, social security card, passport. They were all in the guest house at my parents' property. I also wanted some personal things, photos from childhood, my grandmother's other jewelry, the pieces I hadn't sold yet, a few items that mattered. I knew where my parents kept the spare key. I knew the alarm code. They'd never changed it. I could slip in late at night when everyone was asleep, grab what I needed, and be gone. I took an Uber to their house at 2 in the morning. It cost $22 I couldn't afford, but I had no choice. The neighborhood was dark and quiet. Big houses set back from the street, their windows black. As the Uber pulled away, I walked up the long driveway toward the house. Then I stopped. There was a car in the driveway I didn't recognize. A silver BMW. And lights on inside the house. I crept closer, staying in the shadows. Through the front window, I could see people in the living room. Mom and Dad, Courtney and Devin, and wine glasses. They were all up at 2 in the morning, drinking wine and talking. I moved closer to the side of the house where a window was slightly open. I could hear voices. "Are you sure?" That was Mom's voice, excited, positive. 3 months. Courtney sounded happy, lighter than I'd heard her in years. "We just got the confirmation yesterday." "Oh, honey." Mom was crying happy tears. "My first grandchild." There were congratulations, hugs, more crying. Courtney was pregnant. I should have left then, but something kept me there, listening. The conversation shifted. "Thank God we cut her out before this," Mom said, and I knew immediately she meant me. "Can you imagine her around our grandchild?" "She'd probably try to poison the baby against us," Courtney said. "Tell it lies about what a terrible family we are." Devin's voice surprised me with its cruelty. "You did the right thing. Some people are just born bad, born wrong. Sometimes you have to cut out the cancer before it spreads." "She was always a cancer," Mom agreed. "Even as a child. Always causing problems. Always making everything about her." "The wedding was the last straw," Courtney said. "But honestly, it was the excuse I needed. I wanted her gone for years." "We all did," Dad said, his voice. The man who'd been silent through everything, who I thought might secretly be on my side. "She made every family event miserable. Every holiday, every dinner. Always sulking, always playing victim. The best part is how easy it was," Mom said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. A few phone calls, a couple of social media posts. Everyone believed us immediately. "Because it was true," Courtney insisted. "She is unstable. She proved that at the wedding. She played piano beautifully, and we punished her for it," Devin said. Then he laughed. "Which is the most unstable thing of all. But no one questions us because we have money." They all laughed at that. "Do you think she's left town yet?" Dad asked. "Probably," Mom said. "She was staying with that friend Amanda, but I heard Craig wanted her out. She has no money, no job. She'll slink away eventually." "Good riddance," Courtney raised her glass. "To family, the ones who matter." They clinked glasses. I stood outside in the dark, the February cold seeping through my thin jacket, listening to the people who raised me celebrate my destruction. They hadn't just rejected me. They'd actively conspired to ruin my life. They'd coordinated it, planned it, executed it perfectly, and they felt no remorse. They were proud of what they'd done. They saw me as cancer, something to be cut out and discarded. My foot hit a ceramic planter I hadn't seen in the dark. It scraped against the concrete with a loud scraping sound. "What was that?" Devon's voice, sharp. I heard footsteps approaching the window. I turned and ran, my heart hammering. I made it to the street as the front door opened. "Carol! Someone's out here!" Devon shouted. "Oh my God. Is it her?" Mom's voice, frightened now. "Is she stalking us?" I ran down the street, my breath burning in my lungs. Behind me, I heard Devon yelling, then sirens. They'd called the police. I ducked into a neighbor's yard, behind a tall hedge, and crouched there shaking. 2 police cars pulled up to my parents' house, lights flashing. I heard voices, explanations. Carol describing how her troubled daughter had been harassing them, how she'd shown up in the middle of the night, how they feared for their safety. I waited until the police went inside, then ran in the opposite direction. I ran for 6 blocks before I stopped, gasping, my sides aching. I checked the news on my phone with shaking hands. Nothing yet, but I knew it would come. By morning, the restraining order was filed. I saw it when I checked the court records online, unable to sleep in my motel room, an emergency protective order against me. My parents claimed I'd been harassing them, making threats, showing up at their home displaying erratic behavior in the middle of the night. The order was granted immediately based on their testimony. The local news picked it up by afternoon. Wedding pianist daughter violates family's privacy. The story framed exactly how I knew it would. The unstable daughter escalating her harassment of her concerned family. The comments online were even worse than before. "Lock her up. This is what happens when mentally ill people don't get treatment. The family needs protection from her. She's dangerous." I sat in the motel room, down to $43, with a bus ticket to Nashville I couldn't use because leaving town with a restraining order pending would make me look guilty, with a record now. With my name in the news as someone dangerous. They'd won. Completely and totally. The motel manager knocked on my door that afternoon. "You need to check out by tomorrow. We need the room. Can I pay for one more night? No refunds on tonight. But tomorrow you gotta go." I had nowhere to go, and no way to get there. I spent that night sitting on the motel bed, staring at the wall. I'd lost everything. My family, my home, my reputation, my career, my safety. I had $43 and an arrest warrant hanging over my head if I violated a restraining order I didn't even know existed until it was filed. At 7 in the morning, there was a knock on the door. Gentle, not demanding. I almost didn't answer. "Bertie? My name is Patricia. I was at your sister's wedding. Please, I need to talk to you." I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. A woman in her 60s stood there, well-dressed in slacks and a sweater, kind eyes and a lined face. "I don't have money," I said automatically. "I'm not here for money." She looked at me with something like compassion. "I heard what happened. The restraining order. The news. I know you have nowhere to go. Who are you?" "I'm Devon's aunt. I was at the wedding. I heard you play." She paused. "I know your mother and sister. I've known them for years through family connections. And I know what they are." Something in her voice made me take the chain off the door. Patricia came in and sat in the room's only chair. I sat on the bed. "I should have spoken up sooner," she said. "I've watched Courtney treat people horribly for years. Service workers, people she considers beneath her. I've watched your mother enable it. I knew bringing her into our family was a mistake, but it wasn't my place to say anything. Why are you here? Because what they're doing to you is evil, and I can't stand by anymore." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I'm a retired family law attorney. I specialized in cases of parental abuse and family dysfunction. I can't afford a lawyer. I'm not asking for money. I'm offering help, pro bono, because this needs to be documented. You need someone in your corner." I felt tears welling up for the first time in weeks. They've destroyed everything. Even if you help me, my reputation is gone. No one will hire me. I can't stay in this state. Then we document what happened, and we help you start over. Properly, legally. She looked at me seriously. What they've done is defamation. It's harassment. With the right documentation, we can fight back. How? Everyone believes them. Not everyone. I have contacts. People in media who handle stories about family estrangement, abuse, recovery. People who know how to tell these stories right. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. Something small and fragile. Hope. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I should have let it go to voicemail. But some instinct made me answer. Is this Bertie Patterson? Yes. This is Officer Martinez, with the Hartford Police. We need you to come down to the station. My stomach dropped. Why? You've been charged with violating a restraining order. We have a warrant for your arrest. I looked at Patricia, my eyes wide with panic. I didn't violate it. I didn't go near them. According to the complainants, you posted about them on social media after the order was filed. That constitutes contact and harassment under the terms of the order. The social media post, the one I'd made defending myself, I'd posted it 3 days ago. The restraining order had been filed 2 days ago. I hadn't known the order existed when I made the post, but that didn't matter. Legally, I'd violated it. There's an officer outside your location now. Please come out voluntarily. I looked out the window. A police car sat in the parking lot. Patricia stood up. Don't say anything without a lawyer present. Do you understand? Nothing. I nodded. Numb. I'll get you a lawyer. I'll arrange bail. Do not talk to them. The arrest was humiliating. Handcuffs in the motel parking lot while other guests watched. The back of a police car. Processing at the county jail. Fingerprints. Mugshot. A cell. I spent the night in jail. The most terrifying night of my life. The sounds, the smells, the other inmates. Some were kind, some were scary. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I appeared before a judge. Carol and Courtney were there with their lawyer, an expensive-looking man in a suit that probably cost more than I'd made all year. Mom testified. She talked about my increasing instability, my harassment, my stalking behavior. She cried on the stand, real tears. She was terrified of me, she said. Afraid of what I might do. Courtney testified too. She was pregnant now, she told the court. She feared for her unborn baby's safety. Her sister had shown up at their house in the middle of the night. Her sister was obsessed with her. Jealous. Dangerous. The judge set bail at $5,000. I didn't have $5, let alone $5,000. Patricia was in the courtroom. She tried to argue for lower bail, but she wasn't my lawyer of record. The judge denied the request. I was taken back to county jail. 4 days I stayed there. 4 days that felt like 4 years. I met women who'd been destroyed by the system, by families, by circumstances. I heard stories that made mine seem mild by comparison. An older woman named Ruth, in for drug possession, sat with me in the common area. You got family money against you? I nodded. Then you're fighting uphill. System protects people who know how to use it. Your family knows how. You need to learn. On the 5th day, Patricia got me out. She'd arranged bail through some kind of charitable bond fund for people who couldn't afford it. A public defender named Justin had been assigned to my case. Patricia picked me up from jail and drove me to a women's shelter in Hartford. You can stay here while we figure this out. It's safe. They'll give you meals, help you look for work. The shelter was clean but crowded. Bunks in a big room. Women and children everywhere. All of us displaced by circumstances we couldn't control. I was assigned a bunk next to a young mother with 2 kids. She was there because she'd left her abusive husband and had nowhere else to go. I was at absolute rock bottom. I had an arrest record, a restraining order, no money, no job, no family, living in a shelter. My name was all over the news as a dangerous stalker. Justin, the public defender, met with me the next day. He was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes and too many files on his desk. He explained my situation. The hearing is in 3 days. Honestly, your case isn't strong. You did technically violate the order with the social media post, even though you didn't know about it. You were found at their house in the middle of the night. You have no witnesses to support your version of events, so I'm going to lose. Probably. The judge will likely rule against you. Best case, you get probation and a permanent restraining order. Worst case, jail time. I sat in his cramped office and felt the walls closing in. Ruth's words echoed. The system protects people who know how to use it. I needed to change the game. I needed to stop reacting and start acting. What if we had evidence? I asked Justin. What kind of evidence? The wedding. The whole reception was professionally filmed and photographed. There's footage of my mom calling me background music in front of guests. Footage of me playing, of everyone's reactions. Maybe footage of the confrontation afterward. Justin's expression shifted, became more interested. That would help. A lot. Can you get it? I thought about Patricia, her connections to Devin's family. Maybe. That night at the shelter, I called Patricia. The wedding footage. Is there any way to get it? I can try. Devin's family hired the photographer and videographer. Let me make some calls. 2 days before the hearing, Patricia called back. They won't release the footage. Devin's family refuses. Courtney has blocked them from sharing it with anyone. Of course she had. The footage would show the truth. There has to be copies, I said. The photographer, the videographer, they keep copies for their portfolios, right? Courtney paid them extra to delete everything except what she approved. She destroyed the evidence, just like she destroyed everything else. I went to court the next day, feeling hopeless. Justin had prepared me. This was a formality. I'd lose. I'd be convicted of violating the restraining order. I'd have a permanent record. My life, what was left of it, would be even more damaged. But when I walked into the courtroom, I saw someone I didn't expect. Helen, the music producer, was sitting in the back row. The hearing began. Carol took the stand first, composed and credible in a conservative suit. She described my escalating behavior, the outbursts, the social media harassment, the terrifying moment when I appeared at their house in the middle of the night. I don't recognize my daughter anymore, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She needs help, professional help, but she refuses to get it, and now she's become dangerous. Courtney testified next. She was visibly pregnant now, her hand resting protectively on her small bump. She talked about living in fear, about having to move forward with her pregnancy, while worrying about her unstable sister, about the wedding I'd ruined, the harassment that followed. I love my sister, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I have to protect my baby. I have to protect my family. Their lawyer presented the evidence. Screenshots of my social media posts. The police report from the night I was at their house. Testimony from people at the wedding who said I'd seemed agitated, strange. It was all so carefully constructed, so believable. Then it was our turn. Justin stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to call Helen Morrison to the stand. I turned to look at Helen in surprise. She walked forward and was sworn in. Miss Morrison, can you tell the court your occupation? I'm a music producer. I run Morrison Music Group. Were you at the wedding in question? I was. Can you describe what happened that evening? Helen took a deep breath. I heard Bertie play piano. It was extraordinary. One of the most beautiful performances I've ever heard. I offered her a recording contract on the spot. And what happened after that? I received calls from Carol Patterson and Courtney Patterson. They told me Bertie was mentally unstable. They made specific allegations about theft and threats. They offered me money to withdraw my offer and to discourage other producers from working with her. The courtroom went very still. They offered you money? Justin repeated. Yes. $5,000 to walk away and to contact anyone else in the industry who might be interested in working with Bertie. Did you accept this money? Helen looked ashamed. I did, and I've regretted it every day since. What I did was wrong. What they did was worse. Justin pulled out his phone. Your Honor, I have recordings of these phone conversations. Miss Morrison recorded them. The judge's expression changed. Approach. Justin played the recordings. The courtroom could hear Carol's voice, clear and cold, offering money to ruin me. Courtney's voice adding details about what Helen should tell people. There was more. Helen had tracked down the videographer from the wedding. He was waiting outside. The videographer, a nervous man in his 30s named Marcus, took the stand next. Did Courtney Patterson pay you to edit the wedding footage? Yes. She paid me $2,000 extra to remove specific sections. What sections? The part where her mother called her sister background music, the audience's reaction to the piano performance, and the confrontation in the private room afterward. I kept the originals, though. I always keep originals for liability purposes. Justin presented a hard drive. The original, unedited footage. The judge watched it in chambers during a recess. When court reconvened, her face was stern. Having reviewed all evidence presented, including the testimony and recordings, I'm dismissing all charges against Miss Patterson. Carol and Courtney's faces went white. Furthermore, I'm dissolving the restraining order and warning the complainants that filing false reports and tampering with evidence are serious offenses. You should consider yourselves fortunate I'm not pursuing charges against you at this time. She looked at me. Miss Patterson, you're free to go. The courtroom erupted. Their lawyer was protesting. Carol was crying, real tears now, but tears of fury and shame, not the fake sympathy tears from before. I walked out of that courtroom in a daze. The local news picked up the real story within hours. Family caught manipulating evidence against daughter. The headline was everywhere. Social media exploded. People who had attacked me were now apologizing. The narrative flipped overnight. I wasn't the unstable daughter anymore. I was the scapegoat who survived. Comments poured in. We were so wrong about her. This is absolutely horrifying. Her family should be arrested. That poor girl. The original wedding posts were rediscovered with new context. People could see it now, how carefully they'd crafted the narrative, how easily everyone had believed it. Over the next week, opportunities started coming back. Helen called me formally, offering not just a recording contract, but better terms than she'd originally proposed. Other producers reached out. The coffee shop called to apologize and ask me back with a raise. Piano students' parents contacted me, embarrassed and apologetic, asking me to resume lessons. Patricia helped me find a small apartment, even co-signed the lease. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My life started to rebuild, piece by piece. Carol and Courtney faced their own consequences. People in their social circles started avoiding them. Some of Carol's clients left her. Courtney's pregnancy should have been a celebration, but instead it was overshadowed by scandal. Devin's family was reportedly furious. There was talk of the marriage being in trouble. 2 months after the hearing, Carol sent a message through Patricia. She wanted to meet, to talk, to do family mediation. I declined. I had no interest in people who'd tried to destroy me, who'd coordinated to ruin my life, and felt no remorse until they got caught. 3 months after the hearing, I played my first real concert. A proper venue in downtown Hartford, promoted by Helen's label. 250 tickets sold out in 3 days. I was backstage getting ready, my hands shaking, but not from fear, from excitement. This was real. This was happening. There was a knock on the dressing room door. A stagehand stuck her head in. Someone here to see you. Says she's family. My stomach dropped. I walked out to the hallway. Carol and Courtney stood there. Courtney was heavily pregnant now, maybe 7 months along. She looked tired, older somehow. Carol looked diminished without her usual armor of confidence. What do you want? I asked. We wanted to come to your concert, Carol said. To support you. Support me? You tried to destroy me. We made mistakes, Courtney said. Terrible mistakes. But I'm about to have a baby. I want my daughter to know her aunt. Your daughter will never know me. Neither will any children you have. I kept my voice steady. You coordinated to ruin my life. You didn't just reject me. You actively tried to make sure I'd never succeed at anything. And you only care now because you got caught. We're family, Carol said, her voice breaking. Families make mistakes. We can work through this. No, family doesn't try to destroy each other. You're not my family. You're just people I used to know. Bertie, please. Courtney reached for my arm. I stepped back. Leave. If you want to attend the concert, you can buy tickets like everyone else. But we're done. Permanently. You can't just cut us out, Carol said, anger creeping into her voice now. Yes, I can. You taught me how. You're very good at it. I had security escort them out. When I walked on stage 20 minutes later, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of them, of trying to earn their approval, of hoping they'd change, of wishing they'd see me, all of it was gone. I played the same composition from the wedding, but it had evolved. I'd added new movements. The pain was still there, but also the survival, the betrayal, but also the triumph, the darkness, but also the light that came after. The audience was silent, transfixed. When I played the final note, the silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then they rose as one. Standing ovation that lasted 6 minutes. People were crying, some were laughing, all of them were clapping. Afterward, people lined up to meet me, to tell me my story had moved them, to share their own stories of family pain, of survival, of finding themselves after loss. Helen hugged me. You did it. This is just the beginning. Patricia was there with tears in her eyes. I'm so proud of you. The women from the shelter came, a group of them, dressed in their best clothes. Ruth, who'd given me advice in jail, squeezed my hand. You learned, she said. 6 months after that concert, I released my first album. I called it background music. It was deliberate, a reclamation, taking the insult that was meant to diminish me and turning it into something powerful. The album cover was a photo of a piano in an empty room, spotlight on the keys. Simple, strong. The album did well. Not platinum or anything, but good. Critics liked it, people connected with it. It sold enough that Helen wanted to do another one. I wasn't famous. I probably never would be. But I was successful on my own terms. I played concerts in small to medium venues. I had loyal fans who came to hear me play. I made enough money to live comfortably, to have my own apartment, my own life. I had people who cared about me. Patricia had become like a mother to me, the mother I should have had. We had dinner every week. Helen was both my producer and my friend, someone who believed in my talent and pushed me to be better. The women from the shelter, I volunteered there now, teaching free piano lessons to kids, giving back to the place that gave me shelter when I had nothing. I built a chosen family, people who supported me, respected me, saw me. I never spoke to Carol or Courtney again after that night at the concert. They tried a few more times. Letters, emails, messages through mutual acquaintances. I ignored all of them. Courtney had her baby, a girl. I saw the announcement on social media. She looked happy in the photos. Maybe she was. Maybe motherhood changed her. I didn't care enough to find out. Carol eventually stopped trying to contact me. I heard through the grapevine that her real estate business struggled for a while after the scandal. Some clients came back eventually. Some never did. She and Dad stayed together. They told people I was troubled, that they'd tried everything. Some people believed them. Most people knew the truth by now. Devin and Courtney's marriage lasted 2 years after their daughter was born. They divorced when the baby was 1. I heard it was ugly. Custody battles, financial disputes, all the things that happen when a marriage built on image, rather than substance, falls apart. I didn't feel satisfaction at their pain. I didn't feel much of anything about them anymore. They were part of my past, and I'd moved beyond it. A year after the album release, I was playing a small concert in Boston. After the show, a woman approached me. She was maybe in her 40s, well-dressed, kind face. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "I heard your album. I read your story. It gave me the courage to leave my own toxic family situation. I'd been making excuses for them for years, thinking if I just tried harder, was better, they'd change. Your story helped me see that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away." I heard stories like that a lot now. People who connected with my music because they'd lived through similar things. Adult children of narcissistic parents, scapegoats in their families, people who'd been gaslit and manipulated and made to feel crazy. My music gave them permission to trust their own experience, to know they weren't alone, to believe they deserved better. That became the most meaningful part of my career. Not the album sales or the concert tickets. The people who told me my story mattered, that it helped them. I learned things in those years after the wedding, hard lessons that changed me. I learned that some families are toxic, not because you're flawed, but because they are. That you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. That sometimes love isn't enough if it only flows one direction. I learned that your worth isn't determined by people who choose not to see it. That when people try to make you small, the answer isn't to shrink, it's to grow bigger. I learned that chosen family can be stronger than blood family. That the people who show up for you in your worst moments are your real family, regardless of DNA. I learned that walking away from toxic people isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. It's recognizing that you deserve better and having the courage to pursue it. Most importantly, I learned that I was never background music. I was always meant to be the symphony, but I had to believe that myself before anyone else could hear it. My mother wanted me to fade into the background, to be forgettable, easily dismissed. She wanted me to play it safe, play it small, never shine too bright and steal anyone else's spotlight. But music isn't meant to be background noise. Real music demands attention. It makes you feel. It changes something in the room, in the world, in yourself. I am a musician, not a failed real estate agent, not a disappointing daughter, not someone's supporting player. I am an artist who creates something meaningful. Someone who survived being torn down and built herself back up. Someone who knows her own worth now, who doesn't need validation from people who were never going to give it. The piano isn't where I hide. It's where I'm most fully myself. And that's something my mother will never understand. You can't make art, real art, by playing it safe. You can't create something meaningful while trying to be invisible. Art requires courage. It requires taking up space. It requires believing you have something worth saying, and saying it loudly enough that people hear. My mother tried to silence me. Instead, she taught me how important it is to use my voice. So, I play, I compose, I perform, I teach, I create. And I do it all on my own terms, for my own reasons, answering to no one but myself. That's not background music. That's a life fully lived. Have you ever had to walk away from family to save yourself? Have you ever been made to feel small by the people who were supposed to lift you up? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experience matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about resilience, survival, and finding your own path. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling with their own toxic family situation. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your journey, whether you're still in the darkness or you've found your way to the light, you remember this. You are not background music. You are the whole symphony. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. And never stop believing you deserve better.